This is the story of a dog who discovered a hidden stash of treats and then invited all his favorite dogs from the park to come and get some. Our story begins like so many others do at the dog park, where a handsome golden retriever named Gus was enjoying a nice game of fetch with his human, Emily. Gus loved going to the park. Not only did he get to run around and play with his favorite toy, but he also got to see all his favorite dogs, including his best friend, a goofy-looking bulldog named Winston. As Gus and Winston were playing, they noticed something strange under the slide that neither of them had seen before. It was a small plastic bag. Winston sniffed it and then barked at it, and Gus, being the brave dog that he was, went over and nudged it with his nose. The bag rustled, and then, well, wouldn't you know it, Gus had discovered a whole stash of doggy treats. Now, Gus wasn't greedy, even though he really liked treats. He knew that Winston liked them just as much, if not more. So Gus and Winston split the treats right down the middle. Then, because they were both full of sugar and excitement, they started running around the park as fast as they could, which inevitably led to them getting into a little bit of a scuffle. They wrestled and tumbled over each other until finally, out of breath, they flopped down on the grass next to the slide, panting happily. It had been such an exciting afternoon that Gus and Winston forgot all about their humans. Emily had gone over and sat down on a nearby bench after calling Gus over for some water, and she had no idea that her dog had made a new discovery. And Winston's owner, Mr. Williams, was too busy texting on his phone to notice his dog happily munching on a treat. As the sun began to set and it was time for Gus and Winston to go home, they made a secret plan. They would meet back at the slide the next day when no humans were around, so they could go through the treats together again. Winston practically skipped along the sidewalk on his way home, his mind already dreaming of the next day and the delicious treats he would get to enjoy. The next day rolled around faster than a dog on a skateboard, and Winston was out the door the second his human, Mr. Williams, finished his breakfast. As soon as Winston got to the park, he spotted Gus waiting for him by the slide. Gus looked important and serious, like he had something to say, and Winston couldn't wait to hear what it was. "Winston," Gus began, "I have something to tell you." "Something very important?" Winston wagged his tail excitedly. "Was this about the treats?" Gus continued, "I think we need to share our secret stash with all our friends in the park." Winston was confused. "But Gus, those treats are mine?" "Well, half mine and half yours." "What do you mean share?" Gus explained, "Think about it, Winston. All of our friends here love treats, and most of them don't even know that there's a stash hidden at the park. It would be fun if we shared them with everyone." Now, Winston wasn't selfish like most dogs, but he really did love those treats, and he didn't want to share them with everyone. But seeing how excited Gus was, Winston knew that he wouldn't be able to say no. So Winston sighed and said, "All right, Gus, let's go find our other friends." Gus and Winston ran off as fast as they could to find their first friend, a sassy French bulldog named Coco. Coco had a thing for fast cars, belly rubs, and, of course, treats. She was laying out in the sun when Gus and Winston approached her and told her about the hidden stash of treats. "Oh, yeah," Coco said dreamily. "That sounds amazing. Lead the way." Gus and Winston raced to the slide, happy that Coco was joining them. But as they got closer, they saw a big, scary German shepherd laying under the slide where the treats were supposed to be. Oh," Winston said nervously. "I think someone beat us to the punch." The German shepherd looked up at them and said gruffly, Well, what do we have here?" "Two little pups who think they can steal my stash of treats." The German shepherd stood up, revealing that he was wearing a collar with a name tag that read Rambo. "You see, I found this bag of treats yesterday, but then you two came along and started eating them without asking me first. So I took them back." "But don't worry," Rambo said with a smirk. I saved you two, the best ones. Rambo opened his mouth to reveal a few tiny pieces of bacon, which he proceeded to gobble up in one gulp. Gus and Winston were shocked. How could this big, mean dog take all the treats and eat them? Then Gus thought of a plan. Hey, Rambo, we bet you can't outrun us. With that, Gus and Winston started running away as fast as they could. Rambo barked furiously and chased after them. They ran around the park until they got to the big open field in the center. Then they turned and raced toward the woods. Rambo wasn't fast enough, though, and soon he was left panting on the field with all the other dogs. When Gus and Winston got back to the slide, they realized that Rambo hadn't taken all the treats. There were still quite a few left. They quickly gathered up all the treats they could find and then ran as fast as they could to find more dogs to invite to their party. Next, they found a tiny chihuahua named Coco, who was taking a nap under a bush. Coco, wake up, Winston said urgently. We have so many treats, and we want you to come help us eat them all. Ooh, Coco replied sleepily. What's the big rush? We got all day. Coco followed Gus and Winston back to the slide, and pretty soon there were so many dogs there that it looked like a doggy convention. There was a fluffy white Samoyed named Holly, a goofy-looking bulldog named Bruce, and even a shy Dalmatian named Sparky. There were so many dogs there that Gus and Winston couldn't remember all their names. They had dogs of all shapes and sizes, from the littlest Chihuahua to the biggest Great Dane. And what would a party be without some music? A little terrier named Scout started singing, "Let's all go down to the park and have some fun." The dogs sang along as they danced in a big circle. It was the happiest party any of them had ever been to. After the song, Gus and Winston divided up the treats and gave them out to all the dogs. They watched as their friends enjoyed the treats as much as they did, and they were so happy that they had shared the surprise with them. As the day wore on, the dogs played and ran around until they were exhausted. Then they all flopped down on the grass next to the slide, panting happily. Gus and Winston had never felt so tired in their lives, but they didn't care. They had had the best day ever. From that day on, the dogs all met at the slide every day to enjoy the hidden stash of treats. And Gus and Winston were always in charge of bringing them. Sometimes they got to the slide and the treats were gone, but they never got upset. They knew that their friends had probably found them first and decided to share them with each other. And that's exactly what Gus and Winston had done all those days ago. The end.